I'm aware for everybody who's here and those who choose to stay, we've got quite a long meeting with quite a lot of papers because I think we've got nearly 27 grants to consider tonight. And we've got less money than we've got requests, but it's a significant amount of money, so we want to try and do it justice. So welcome everybody to the Finance and Management Committee of the Home Valley Parish Council. I'm chairing the meeting. I'm only vice chair normally, but Pat unfortunately can't be with us this evening, who's our chair normally. So we start the meeting with welcome, so welcome for coming. And then the first formal part of the business is what we call public question time, which is a time limited slot where people are allowed a few minutes to discuss any topic they wish really. And I'm aware there's two groups here who've got grants with us this evening. So you've got a couple of minutes to tell us about that. We don't tend to engage in a conversation really, we tend to have your pitch and then we make our own deliberations, which you're welcome to stay and listen to if you want.
Okay.
Stephen's here first, so I'll let Stephen.
Okay, Stephen Doyle, Holmfirth Film Festival. Last night we had a film on downstairs and we got 160 people. It shows that people started to come back to the cinema. Last year was an artistic success, socially, culturally successful. We put on over 70 films, had a lot of talks, and we put on films at Honley again, first time in a couple of years.
Southgate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And Netherthong for the first time, and New Mill Church. And we have taken over the arrangements for Hepworth Film Society because they were having difficulty getting volunteers, etc. And we help the civic and we're giving out or use our equipment for various things, community groups. And the money that we had from the grant here went to the venues, specifically to the tech, to the civic, so community-run venues. We also raised over £500 for Ukraine, and we intend to do that this year. So 70 films is a lot compared to film societies and film festivals who do more than most places, I think. There was a negative in that it was difficult for people to come back, I think, after COVID, and we are still 20% down, which I think is fairly standard for all festivals, community groups, etc. Probably the older generations, it's difficult to get them back. But we did get a lot of new people, younger people, and specifically in the age range 20 to 30, which is the target through the British Film Institute, so we did quite well on that. I apologise for the lateness of our application. As a volunteer organisation, it's always difficult putting these things together. This year it was very difficult because of personal circumstances, and it was very difficult to get all the financial things done, but we did do that. Financially, we are okay, but this year is going to be difficult because I think the BFI, as of yet, have no funding, and they don't know if they will have funding, so it'll be down. We have promised to fund some events at New Mill Church, which were quite successful last time, and we want to do more venues, choppers, etc. We also want to do music and film. It is Kirklees Year of Music, which financially is a complete not a disaster, as there's no money in it except for a website. But we do think it's a good idea. We're going to put something on in Firth in the summer, and I've already been talking to local music groups, film orchestras, soul choir, and others, and we're going to do a big music and film event over the weekend. And we're going to do something on Ukraine, and we intend using the community venues again. So in a sense, we kind of recycle the funding, and they need help because they're obviously in trouble as well. Given that you have, as you mentioned, a lot more applicants than you do money, I would be quite happy with whatever you decide to give us. It can be seen that we do have some good reserves, but we did spend £2,000 last year on free films. We wanted to get people coming out. We gave money to Ukraine and other things. And I would suggest it was probably wise that we did build up our reserves because it's going to become increasingly difficult. That's it.
I have got one quick question
Yep.
actually. And this is a side conversation we might, to some extent, we team and ladle money between budgets. And I noticed that your April events are around wildlife and climate change.
Yes.
I just wondered if you knew what the costs of that might be. I know you've been quite specific in what you've asked for the money for, but I was thinking that might be of interest to colleagues who are interested in the climate change work.
Well, yes. I mean, over the last 2 years, we've had a theme of climate change, and we did things on cycling and got a lot of local cycling groups and talks and things, and we did one on housing. We wanted to do one on rewilding and biodiversity and wildlife in particular. So there are some specific films featuring animals and dogs and various other things that we do done for that. It's hard to tell because we don't really book things until the last moment because we want to get the most up-to-date films. But it's probably, the April thing will probably be about £10,000, I imagine.
Right, okay, that's useful.
And we're having the weekend also in October.
Yeah.
The one in April will not be as extensive as the one in October. Again, I think this is general. Again, it's the volunteers. It's becoming quite a problem for us in particular. The lack of technical stuff. We try very hard, but it's very difficult to get people to do the tech side, which we depend on.
Okay, that's fine. We must move on, but it's worth knowing that you've got that focus on the April programme. Would
Yeah, would you like me to start?
friends from Honley Library, Honley?
Well, I'm Bridget Crabtree and this is Carrie Birch, and we're both friends of Honley Library. We've been volunteers for many years now there. We were aware when we first started the Children's Book Festival in 2016 that we needed to engage and encourage wider audiences to participate and get engaged and use the library, which we're wanting to develop into a community hub. And I think the Children's Book Festival is a really good way of engaging and getting people in to do different things. We do serve Honley and the surrounding area. We have good links with all the schools who help advertise our activities and work with us. Our other partners include Reed, various authors, lots of different people. We have a wide variety of skilled volunteers. You probably grasp I can talk for England, but I can also do crafts and all different sorts of things too. We do. So the children's book activities can involve sort of things around the summer reading challenge, which is a good thing to encourage children to read and to continue to develop their reading skills through the library activities. We looking for the money looking for authors. A lot of volunteers give a lot of time. In the application it says 4 hours per event. That's absolute rubbish. I could spend 10 hours per event dead easy, and that's just one of me who's doing it. Sort of getting things organised and planning and sort of setting up the library and all of that sort of thing. We did continue through on Zoom during COVID, which was developed our links with both the Sweet Shop and the Co-op, who did extraordinarily well on our behalf. We're looking at funding, as I say, for money for the side of things like paying people to come and do things, sort of like authors, because authors will inspire.
It's about a love of books as much as it is about reading skills, because I think you're more likely to love books and then get the reading skills because you're motivated. But yeah.
We're open to all. We've had children who have disabilities. We work with children. Carrie's been involved in setting up into the Babies into Books, which you might like to learn a little bit more about.
Yeah. Right, we started Babies into Books April 2022, and it's taken off. It's been a big success, and the rationale behind that is that if you start sharing books with babies very early in their lives, interactions between you, the reader, and the baby are much better, but also they get hooked on books from a very early age, and that's partly what we want. So we have somebody who's a volunteer. She teaches childcare workers, and she gives her time voluntarily. There's no cost for this to come to this group. She does a quick informal input of nursery rhyme singing, and there's all kinds of sensory equipment for babies. Everybody sits round in a big circle. We push back all those bookcases, and they're all sitting there, parents and grandparents may sit on chairs. We get mums, dads and grandparents coming with very little children. The other thing about it is that it reduces isolation, and for some children that were just coming out of the pandemic time and they were kind of barely 2, they had known nothing else really, they hadn't been going anywhere. And I think it's been quite important for them doing that. So when Helen's finished her input, they then have a drink, and they socialise for half an hour, and then they all go home. So the mixture is really good, I think. There are very varied socio-economic groups, different languages, different ethnicities, and I think that the other thing is it encourages people to know that babies can join the library. So we make sure that they get their library cards, they can start borrowing, they can return and borrow books during the session, and it's incredibly a very busy session. I think the last time we had 21 adults and 23 children, so there's not much room for manoeuvre, but it's good, and that seems to be continuing. And I'll now I think just finish by saying we do apologise in a way for coming with a grant application when we know that you've got money that could go, well, can't go for as far as you want it to. The reason is really that we know that you've given a lot of money through other channels to Friends of Family Library.
Which we are very grateful for.
Which we are very grateful
We're not grateful for.
I think
We are.
because this is a revenue. This is project money as opposed to capital money.
I know.
We understand that. So I think.
Yeah, but it's kind of, I think some of the management committee felt embarrassed. They did. But I think what we're wanting is some money to tide us over until we get a bid into the lottery, which will help launch the community hub with various other things like digital inclusion, but not for the babies. That's it really.
So we'll be looking for money to support us with story walks, visits from authors,
Yeah.
engaging different children in terms of sort of
Yeah.
those with disabilities, that sort of thing that will give us the space to do that. And I have to say, as a volunteer, if you're working with children, you want to have really nice resources.
Yeah, and the same with the babies, it's things like puppets and that kind of thing.
I think I'm sure all the committee would agree. Both of the applications from both of you are very comprehensive, detailed applications. I don't think there's any concerns about the quality of it, and also you've gone to great lengths to explain the beneficiaries and the budget.
Yeah.
And been quite thoughtful about your budgets as well, really. So that's really positive. Okay, we're happy to end public question time. At that point, yeah. We need to do a lot of process stuff at the beginning of the meeting, which largely leads me reading out things which are written down on the agenda, which everybody's seen anyway. Sorry, I was going to say something about this process. So, first item, public bodies, amended by the Openers of Public Bodies regulations. So we can now record meetings, and we are recording it at the back. And I need to check if anybody else wishes to record the meeting and to ensure reasonable facilities can be provided. Does anybody else want to record meetings? No? Phil, are you looking to do that? Apologies for absence. We have got a few. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
I should try and, we'll be making the decisions tonight, and
Yeah.
then obviously there's.
Somebody
due
lets
process
us
to
know.
get back to you.
But thank you ever so much.
Okay, all the best.
Thank you.
All the best for your
Thank
both
you.
projects.
Yeah.
I went to see the film last night and I found it very disturbing.
Did you say those?
I went to see the film last night, The Banshees of In.
Oh, all right, okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't
How many fingers have you got?
Yeah.
I thought it was going to,
Go in the lift. Sorry.
yeah, I thought it was going to be a comic film, like about Irish people involved. Very, very disturbing. Sorry, apologies.
I think, isn't it, really?
Apologies for absence. So obviously you haven't got Pat with us today.
Yeah, so it's just Pat really, and we've got the two discount stations
Yeah.
as well, that you'll be aware of.
And we're expecting Charles later.
Absolutely.
Anybody got any personal and disclosable pecuniary interests? Mary? you've got
Yes.
one? All hands going up everywhere, right? Mary first?
All right. Me first, all right. So item 122, number 20, the application from Friends of Cliff Wreck. So at
Yeah.
that point, I
Yeah.
think I ought to go out of the room and do it properly.
Well, we can discuss that because we've all got interest, so we can discuss whether we stay and be silent or leave. I don't know what people.
I'm a trustee with Friends of Horney Library.
Mine is for Cathol Junior Infant School, because of my children. Who would benefit from it? Sorry, one of my children.
No, I haven't. I did work with the Waldale people on their application, but I'm not involved with them other than just in my day job. I came across them and handled the application and gave them some guidance about the constitution, but I'm not an officer of the group, so I don't really think that's a voting matter. But I'm just telling you that that was one I was aware of. So do we think people need to leave the room or just stay in silence for these items?
I think just stay in silence, because they're not pecuniary, you know.
Yeah, I don't think nobody's making any financial gain out of it. Okay, and have we got any written requests for any new EPI dispensations? Do we think any of the items need to be discussed in private? I know the Garside thing in the past has been, but it's a positive news story now, isn't it really? Is there anything else that's sensitive, you think?
No.
No. Confirm the minutes of the previous meeting, with the agenda that we've all had. Everybody happy with those? I think they've been approved. Anyway, my full council. So the grants. Well, how I ended up doing this last time as well.
So note that first.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we've got to note the rolling list of grants against budgets. This includes the awards granted by full council at the last meeting, because there was a further emergency grant to the tech, I think. And Richard actually given us an advice email in between about the budget, so we know roughly how much money we've got.
It's
I
about
know
30
exactly-
altogether left in total.
Yeah,
Well, it's on this
Yeah,
sheet, isn't it?
it's in highlighted at the very back of the last items now.
Yes, it's the top line of the spreadsheet. It's 14,300 left in projects and events and £15,194.65 in other community assets.
So as we've got 9 for community assets and possibly got even more for projects and events, what I thought we'd do, which is what we did last time, go through them all in principle and say, is this something which we think we would like to support? Is it a good application? Is there any reasons why we can't fund it, be those legal or concerns about the paperwork or the figures? And then once we've got that list together, then we'll basically try and make a decision about how we spread the remaining money amongst them. Or not even that, if we don't think there's enough there worthy of funding. But rather than going through them all and deciding each one, go through them and see what the short list is effectively.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yes.
I have had a chance, because as part of the due diligence checks, I saw the full applications with the bank accounts and constitutions and other things that are redacted from the minutes. So me and Rich had a chat about a few of those. There wasn't really anything massively important that we'll bring up if there is anything, but there are only minor things. There is some issues. There's some issues about powers and there's some issues about some of the reserves, I think, for some of the bodies, isn't there?
Yep.
Is there anything else you want to say, Rich?
Well, I maybe just the point you were making about the On the Open Gardens Festival, I think perhaps leave making,
Yeah,
you know, those kind of ones.
yeah. Okay.
Can I just mention something else, John, which is, I think a couple of them, there's potential opportunity to use other budgets that this
Yeah,
committee doesn't have oversight of. So there's one or two which potentially the Climate Emergency Committee, with its particular funds where they still have money to spend, could be. I would imagine if we were happy to support them, we could recommend in principle that
Yeah.
they agree to the release of it, because then it ends up, as I understand from Rich, it would have to be approved by that committee and then go to full council for it to be fired from one budget to the other.
me and Rich had the same conversation. I'm less sure about the process is a bit.
It's a bit clunky, but it's
Yeah.
because those committees,
Yeah.
Climate Emergency, Pubs and Commons is the other one from the point of view of coronation events. And I'm not quite clear what the money situation is with the coronation events, because I seem to remember
Well,
we set aside quite a lot of money and then
You've got 8,000 left in the earmark reserve.
so
I think,
it's
I think it's not a budget. It's not a budget. I think we moved 2,000 into the top of graph. Yeah, earmark reserve, but that left 8,000. I know you've got a working group, haven't you, to look into how you spend this 8,000.
Yeah.
But this would seem a fairly logical way of spending some of that money, doesn't it?
I just wanted to raise
Yeah,
that now.
but me and
because
Rich
that
had the
will
same
affect the
conversation. So
totals.
should we have that conversation as we go?
I think as we go
As we
through,
shortlist,
yes.
is it?
Because I
So
think
if
some
we move things sideways while we shortlist, we'll do that
Yeah.
then.
I mean, I was kind of working through this before in terms of what perhaps the best process is. I'm not sure the best process isn't to award it from this committee and then potentially make other awards conditional on the referrals to other committees.
So if other money's freed up because we've got other money coming back, we can then fund our third and fourth choices,
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah, that's it. Because I don't think we should be saying to the you know, Honley Village Community Trust that we're not going to fund, you know, that we're not going to award them the money now because we're waiting on pubs and commons. I think we should say they're going to get the money. The only issue is where it's coming from, isn't it? So I think we should.
I understand that in principle, but that also means we're saying to people, at the moment you're a no, unless other committees say yes.
Well, not necessarily a no, but you might scale back
They're still
the
in the main.
you might scale back the other awards.
Yeah. Well, let's go through them and we'll put a mark next to each one, because me and Rick, when we were going through this, we had exactly the same conversation.
And can I make a point that there's significantly much less pressure on projects and events than there is on other community assets.
What, just that for interest, Rich, what is the, have you got the
Projects and
total?
events,
If all funded, 100%.
projects events is 17,000 and we've got 14,300.
Right.
So you're only looking to save about £3 grand, and there's probably a couple that you will. That's not even that's not considering the referrals. That's just. But then the other one, we've got 15,194, and the what people have asked for is 28,308. So that's a much bigger deal.
Okay. Well, let's just start going through these. If everybody's happy with that. So starting with the first one, which was from the Honley Under 8s, which is application towards jackets and wheeled goals. Does anybody have any strong thoughts or views on that?
I'm supportive of giving the money towards the goals. I'm not supportive of jacket. Because I just think buying personal, because in the end it becomes personal equipment, and I think we've sort of railed against that before, and I don't regard that as an asset, to be honest. I regard that as a one-off purchase, whereas the goals will be used for many years on the book.
Yes, Mary?
Yeah, I'm just agreeing really that I would have thought we could have sought sponsorship for for jackets, but obviously not for the girls.
I had the same thought. I think some of this falls into we're less than clear what an asset is, because in my head an asset's something which has got value.
It's fine, there's a new grant system for next year, that's not
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't fully look at everything in detail on these grant applications. Did it say how much the goals were?
1700.
Yeah.
And the jackets are amazing.
So, the moment, we're sort of, we're willing to take forward the request for the goals for 1700, but not the, that's the thing that we're coming to at the moment.
Yeah.
Jane?
Maybe that this is one that you want to think about putting into events and projects as well, rather than community assets.
Yeah, this is what you said. This is what you said about whether they come from
Yeah.
two separate budget lines.
Can we let's keep moving through, because I personally I don't think we'll need to do that.
Okay. Bockles Village Trust, really well used community hall after £2,000 towards an energy audit, and I guess this is where the vote.
And I think this is where there's £2,500 left in the energy budget for climate emergency committee. So I would suggest that the council, via a budget or whatever, is able to fund that. It's a well-used asset, so.
So nobody's got any objections about going forward in
No.
Bristol? I mean, I thought, we've done it with other buildings, it's an obvious thing for us to do, and if we think we can via it that way, that's useful. Friends of Waldale, this is the one that's from schools, and you notice on the agenda that Richard put that he doesn't know of any clear legal power.
I mean, as far as I could see, there are future plans to involve the community, but actually, the bulk of it is just about benefiting the school, really. I thought so.
It was one sentence after thought,
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, that's all there was, and that's all I would suggest.
That's what I thought was disappointing, and that's what I said. After thought it was a good piece to Rich, is what I felt like. So it does raise the issue about it would be mostly used for curricular activity within schools, which would fall outside of our new criteria. Is it?
Although we are by our old criteria.
Yeah.
But I think, I think they should be encouraged to look for alternative green funding pots, because there are quite a lot of environmental funding pots potentially they could look at. In the Bright Green Community Trust, for example.
Yeah.
Okay.
The next one, Netherton Community. Well, it's actually from Netherton Community Centre, but it's for the Honley Community Centre. I've got some views on this. Does anybody else want to got any views on it?
I had some initial views which were, I wasn't really happy about paying just energy bills. I know we have the tech's a unique case in the sense of the number of activities that run out of it, but I openly said I don't know a lot about Colony Community Centre, but I'm struck by the fact they're creating a warm space. But my understanding was that places like the library and other facilities within Honley were already providing a warm space, so I don't feel as if the community would be left with no provision for the people who benefit from it.
I think Arthur Garrett's point is that it's kind of a separate community, isn't it? Away from central London.
Well, I don't
Yeah,
know.
The community centre.
The community centre is next door, practically.
Well, it's not separate from Hornby. It's down. I can't remember the road, but it's fairly central. It's not part of the cricket ground. But it's not.
I think my observation is that it serves a different. It was basically built in the council estate for people on the council estate, and it's got a very different usage and footfall.
There's sort of a lot of social housing, well, perhaps originally intended for older people.
Yeah.
But it was part of that development, wasn't it? Social housing development.
My concern about this is there's a few really. One, I think some of the activities don't really fit in assets because it's basically a warm space and a stay and play refreshments. I think we're on difficult ground anyway if we get into utility bills. But my main concern is I know that the applicant basically read this out over the phone and Jen filled it in for him.
In person.
In person. There's a lot of the person who's the applicant here manages a number of community centres, the Netherton one, the Honley one, and now actually one over in Costlermore as well. I'm really concerned if somebody isn't capable of making their own application, could they manage the monitoring, could they manage the budget, how the projects are actually segregated. So I think it's a poor application largely because it was done on the hoof and read out to the clerk. And I don't really think that's a helpful way, although if I thought somebody had actually got significant difficulties and we needed help in that way, I'd understand that, but there's a number of, it just feels like it's in the wrong box. yeah, generally wants to talk to what we were saying there.
Just to say, it was a case of filling in the form there and then, and although it might have come down as a community asset, it wasn't clear where to put, and we were sort of filling in as we were going as to what the money was actually going to be spent on. I did try to be very specific, that the more specific we are, or applicants are about where the money is going, the easier it is for the committee to allocate resources. But you know, so that's where we were with doing the form. It was quite difficult.
I think the thing that worries me is just in light of what we've heard about the level of input in it, but the issue is there's kind of,
There's one
it is literally going to be money down the drain for those energy costs, because there is nothing in there that shows that there's any move to make it a sustainable usage. It suggests they're just going to keep running grants to cover the increased costs. There's nothing in there that gives confidence that anything's being done to seek alternative funding.
Yeah.
And I just
It's hard not to answer that because this person was sent information about the warm space grants for £500 didn't apply for it. That was money that was I mean, if anything, I'd be interested in referring the two project pots to moving them sideways into the project pot, but not taking this forward out of assets. So I don't think it's assets. And I think the issue about the utility bills, as you've said, is there's no plan B. You know how they're going to resolve it. I don't question that they're not in a difficult situation, but I don't know how well managed that project is. Is anybody speaking up to leave this in here for now, or is there any support to move it?
Councillor Grooms, you might know it's about the community centre.
On the community centre, that's got grants to cover, to offset increased energy costs at Honwood Community Centre.
Just wondered how much you know about it offering a different provision from any of the other.
The community centre.
Yeah.
No, other than it's in the same boat as everybody else, really. I've been in touch with them.
I just feel it's a poor approach application, and I don't think we should be supporting it. There's other CICs, which certainly shouldn't be getting to the business of paying water bills and electric bills. We start that, probably could be never ending.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there no support to moving the stay and play, funding that project or considering that project in? It's because of this. The issue still stand about it being a poor application.
Yeah.
Okay, so it just falls completely? Is that the majority view? I think it feels like it, yeah.
Yes.
So it's, okay. A simple one, Thamesbridge Cricket Club asking for benches. There's a couple of these actually similar. It's obviously an organisation that's had a lot of money in the past, but that shouldn't necessarily prejudice it.
Yeah, I was just going to comment. We have given them a lot of money in recent years, and they comment about their growing membership. Well, if they've got such a growing membership and they're doing rather nicely out of that, then I think they ought to be able to find that funding themselves, to be honest. Because they're also, I mean, they've made a great facility now, and there's, we gave considerable funds towards that, and it's a great community facility. But that said, I feel they do reference how they're a growing club and they've got more and more use and people are using their facilities, which is great, but that's bringing in income and that's how they've made themselves sustainable. So personally, I don't think we can justify giving them picnic benches, which are nice to have, but they're not essential.
Any other?
I agree.
They are turning over 145,000 as well, so there is quite a lot, and a lot of that's borrowing income, isn't it, and other activities, so it doesn't feel as if there's a lot of support in the ring.
No.
To turn that one forward. We're in a position, Charles, where we need to,
True.
yeah, by about 50%. We've pretty much got
I'm
in.
not sure we're doing
It's
anymore.
about 30k worth of applications and about 15.
You end up with 15 grand on the left of this.
Chair, apologies for to my letter, Michael, I do need to make 2 declarations so that have been heard first. Because the personal and prejudicial interests, so I won't be looking to talk or vote in them. So one is the Onley Junior Football Club, my son's on that team, and then the other one is
Library?
I have no different no
Scouts.
specific scouts. Yeah, it's the scouts one.
There's 2 scouts,
two.
isn't there?
Yes.
6 on Valley Onley scouts. Both my kids are in that one. There are some others which I would benefit from, but only the same as any other citizen would do.
Okay. Thank you for that. Was that captured by?
Yeah,
I don't know who's taking the notes. You're doing two-handed.
Richard,
well, I'm taking notes, yeah.
Right. So we're moving on to item 6, which is the Hepworth Band, which is replacement windows. Any thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, this actually is improving community assets, isn't it? Which is what what's this line of the budget is about. So, I mean, I have had some stance with that from us before, but I want to support this,
Yes.
or at least money.
I would support giving them some money. I'm not convinced we should give them all 5,000, only because we have given them we've given them over £5,000, nearly £6,000 over the last 3 years. So I think a contribution definitely, but I'm not sure they merits getting £5,000.
The total cost was 7,200 for this particular project. So we're all supportive of something going forward.
Yes.
I don't know, are you capturing these sort of musings?
Well, they're just musings, so there's no, I don't really need to capture anything yet.
It's numbers, isn't it, at the end?
Okay, next one.
What we propose, we need to bring them out, don't we?
No, not yet.
If Rich can give us an insight of what the balance of the requests is after we've trimmed out stuff. So the next one's from the Scouts. We've got 2 councillors here who've got an involvement. It is both Trinity that you're involved, the one in
I'm no longer involved in
Oh, right,
Scouts.
yes,
I did used to outrun a couples group there, but I haven't since done all that a couple of years ago.
Okay, so this is an application for both the bollards, which they sent a photograph of, that I saw, I don't know if you saw it, and also some tables for in the hall. Any thoughts on this one? Yes?
I thought that was quite a good application, really, explaining why they needed some. I think tables, definitely, it seems like something like long-term use for them. Bollards are obviously something that they need for security, so I'm not averse to expanding both of those, but if we need to cut back, I would prefer us spending money on the tables. I think they would find other money to cover the bollards. In fact, they even say that in their application, don't they? But they know they need to do it, so they'll find money from somewhere.
I support this. Obviously, it depends on how much money we've got to spend and divvy it up as necessary, really, for both things.
Yeah, the only thing I'm trying to think where they put it on the application. Yeah, their reserves were actually, reserves according to their bank account were higher than what they said, but they do talk about, I know there's 2 minibuses outside, I think they talk about replacement of minibuses, don't they?
Yeah,
Which
they're about 15 years old, something like that, so.
So I do think it's legitimate that they're saving money for minibuses and they're key part of what they do. So although there was anyway, you can argue that what's on people's bank balance that I saw is different to what's on here, but you don't know what's gone in and what's gone
Yeah.
out. So there seems to be broad support for that going forward, dependent on how much money's left in the pot. Okay. And then we've got another cricket club also asking for outdoor seating, at quite a higher price, to be fair. But they seem to make it more of a space, more of an actual outdoor space, don't they, really, rather than just benches. So any thoughts on the Upper Thumb Cricket Club application?
I thought this was a good, well thought out application, and I would want to support it, if not to the full the full 4,000 level one.
Yeah, I thought it was a good application. I don't think we've given them money certainly in the time I've been council.
No,
I don't think we've
I don't think we
given
have.
any money, which is unlike many cricket camps we see funded by too many places in business. And I think what I liked about it was they also reflected the requirement and desire to make it more accessible for people, including wheelchair users. And that it was sort of, they'd obviously given thought as to the design of what they were going to propose to put in place, which I thought was pretty positive. And it is a well-supported community facility, and it's a very scenic spot. So it's quite a nice visit. Because I'm conscious in Upper Thumb as well, there isn't actually any park or recreation area. There are plenty of fields, but there aren't any sort of areas for people to congregate. So I think the cricket club sometimes serves a bit of that function. So whether we can support all of it, that's not a question. Support some of it anyway.
Just a general comment, and in years gone by, on the grant criteria, it was always a percentage that would be paid rather than the whole amount, and that often, because you've got to find somebody to go alongside it, that kind of, if you like, helps sort, should we say, commitment and prioritisation on projects, and perhaps offering 100% grants invites massive oversubscription, and it looks like we're going to enter into a situation where we might be allocating percentages, and I actually think it might be worth, and I know we've only just looked at the grant criteria, but this might just help just to revisit that, to maybe put a percentage in, because I suspect that we're going to go from feast and famine every time. We'll have hardly anybody, and then we'll do a shout out, and then we'll be inundated with all kinds of ideas. And I always felt that if a contribution had to be made towards it, there's a commitment there. I think in the past it was 40%. Anything really, you know, even if you're just asking them to put a quarter in, anything gets them there.
On this one, the only thing that they're actually not asking money for is the topsoil and the plants as an additional. So all of the other items, all of the basically physical things they're buying, the planters and the parasols, covers, is in at 100% of the cost.
I think I wondered about if you just include the tables themselves rather than plus the parasols, but don't cover the colours and the bases, for example, then it's more like £3,000. So we could give more of the physical things rather than covers and bits and bats that they can source themselves. I think percentages get a bit complicated because I think sometimes some things aren't viable unless you fund it in its entirety, but it varies with say sports clubs where potentially they've got other sources of funding.
Yeah. There is some money. Well, there is quite a lot in reserve, but then they're saying they need to invest in groundkeeping, cricket training teams. Not that specific. So they have got 21,000 in the bank, so they probably could get it over the line, I would have thought, if we didn't give the full amount.
Move on to the
People have already supported them to fund, at least fund it in some way. So let's see what the figures look like after the last one, which is yet another outdoor seating proposal. And this is for Friends of Cinder Hills Park, and which is incomplete. I know there were some issues.
No, we haven't had, we've probably asked them 4 or 5 times, haven't we, Jim, for the supporting paperwork, but we've had nothing. So,
Since October. First of all, they sent us in the application they submitted unsuccessfully the year before. I emailed them to say, you need to update it and let us have all the supporting paperwork. That was back in October, nothing, chased them up again in January last month, chased them up again, chased them up again, Rich chased them up, and we still, in spite of all of that, we still don't have all the documentation that we've told all the other
we don't have any
they have to have.
documentation.
Yeah.
There was zero documentation apart from the application form.
That's a bit disappointing. I was quite keen to support it, I'm less keen if they're not able to just.
I don't think we should be supporting applications where I haven't got the full documentation. I do know, I suppose that should be an interest, maybe I'm an interest there, I do know this group, but that is really disappointing. I mean, the fact it's been such a long time, if it had been, you know, rushed again, that would be different, but if you've been asking since October, I don't think we should be contemplating giving them any money at this round.
Can I share my theory on why we haven't got a reply? Because I think this has been written by a council officer and they're asking the group to reply and the group hasn't done the application. Because the language in the I support this fully, I can see it from my house, I think it's a lovely project, they've done some great work there. A lot of that is due to the work of the council officer that's been supporting the group. And my guess is that same officer's done this application and then.
We are copying her in as well though.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
not-
surprised, I'm just disappointed
It's
with it.
disappointing.
It's just,
Because they have put a lot of work in down there, haven't they? I'm saying to Mary, because I know Mary's friends at Cliff Road, have done like partnership projects with them. But it feels as if, well, the only way we could fund it is if we were funding it subject to them getting stuff in, but then are we moving the goalposts in a favourable way that's unfair, really? It's not as if you've only started asking them last week, is it? You're saying you've been asking them for months. Charles?
Are they putting this on a council site? This one goes.
Yeah, it is a council line park, yeah. Because they've just done some refurbishments on the
So
park.
the officer, is that a parks officer? Because if he's not a parks officer, did he?
It's a community plus officer who's working with them.
So to cite something like this, they would need to go through parks and property services and the whole shooting match, and that is anything but a simple task. So do they even have permission to do it?
Well, I don't know the answer to that question, but what I do know is they've done a lot of works on that site which has been community led, because they're putting planting beds and all sorts down there, haven't they? And it's the same group that have done that. But whether they've got permission for this as well, I don't know. And the maintenance of it after, because effectively you're plonking it on somebody else's site, aren't you?
Well, so
Legality.
if with the playable spaces strategy, there's a supposedly a funding pot for every single play space. So if there was an identified need for some form of shelter, then parks might be looking at that. But it's a bit hard to say without knowing whether parks are being involved in it or not.
I suggest we just, given the lack of paperwork, we're just going to have to say, we're sorry, but you couldn't provide us with sufficient. Because in the end, we award it and they don't spend it, then we've.
That's what we told them.
Committed the money.
You know, when we've been emailing them, we said we can't look at this application without the supporting paperwork, so I don't think we can really turn around and say, you know,
I think just encourage them to apply again, because it's a great,
Yeah.
we have given money before, but in that case, I think the application was handled by somebody else, and it was a different, you know, the bank account was somebody else's bank account for the path. For the path, yeah.
yeah.
I really don't, I just think we can't agree to this. No. Or if there's any question.
Okay, so well, there's two. I broadly agree with what you say, which sort of carries it. But does Sean and Charles agree that this is not a fit state to go forward with?
I think there's some questions on it.
It's a shame, isn't it? I mean, I think we perhaps need to be proactive, more proactive in terms of trying to get them to engage.
We have offered that though, each
I know we have,
time
I know we have, I know.
you ring us, you know.
I don't think it's the council's fault, is it? Clearly,
No.
it's.
Do you want to do all of the, do you want to do the community asset funds as one thing.
Yeah, but I thought let's do some sums for a bit now. And then
Yeah, okay.
So let's see.
So in terms of what's left, so there's 15,194 in the pot, as you're aware. By eliminating all of those, what the requests are in for now is £17,869.61. So we've got to find basically £2,700. That's not including any referral to CESC for the energy audit.
So the energy audit would bring it in under.
No, not under, but
Close to.
close. Yeah, we need to find 700 quid, I think.
And we talked about reductions on some of them, didn't we?
John?
Yeah, so I'll have a look at your reductions. So if you went for 1,700 for grant number 1, for the goals, not the jackets. Number 2, assume that's going to be some kind of requirement, so don't include it in this calculation at all. Number 3, you rejected. Number 4, you've rejected. Number 5, you've rejected. Number 6, you were talking about giving half of the entire project, which was about 7,000, was it? So they've asked for 5,000, but if you gave them 3,500, and then with number 7, you haven't talked about how much, but let's say that was all of it. And then let's say you were giving all of 8, but I know you haven't decided yet because you're thinking it might just be 3k, but if you did give all of it, it would come to £14,369. Yeah. So you have got enough to cover.
So let's just be clear. Let's just be clear about those reductions. And let's write them all.
Sorry, Jeff, is that with the assumption that the 2,000 is coming from CESC?
Yes.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, that the entirety of it will come from SESC for that one. For number 2.
That's where it gets a bit sticky, is whether we award the money now and have to kind of reduce the other monies and make them pending the other referred payment.
Can we just go through the ones that we think we could reduce? Because in my head, this is the way I was thinking of approaching it. If we think there's the balance there with the 2,000 referral to climate change.
But I don't think we can.
Yes,
include
so
that.
if we didn't do that, what we could do, we could set a grant amount for the ones that we're reducing, like Ebbers Band and the Scouts.
Yeah.
And then if the 2,000 came in, we could give them an extra 1,000.
Yeah, exactly.
So that Hepworth Band could either get 2,500 for the windows or 3,500 if we got the 2,000 back. Does that make sense? But I guess do we need to vote on all of these individually?
No, I think it as a cumulative thing, it's fine.
So we're all clear. Has everybody got the summary of the things in front of them? So the Honley under 8s, we funded the goals but not the jackets.
Yeah.
1,700.
Agreed, Chair? Yeah. Village Hall, we'd love to fund it in full, and we're hoping it can get funded from elsewhere, but either way they're going to get £2,000 from the parish.
Yeah.
Friends of
Can I just
Waldo.
ask about that then? If Climate Emergency decide that they will fund the £2,000, what happens to that £2,000?
We'll come down to that because we're going to boost the lower awards we'll give to the Scouts.
Well,
and the
Yeah, we could do, or we might need it for the other project, or we might decide that actually we can cut back on the other. I don't think we should necessarily give ourselves a commitment that we're going to overspend, and because we've had problems before where things get referred to committees and the committee has a different view.
Yeah, I think we should try and keep under the. We should try and keep under the 15,194.
So we could. Well, the other way around. Well, the other way around this is that we take, like, say the wheel goals. We could fund that out of the project money, couldn't we? Instead. How much are we over if we go? Let's carry on through this process, see if I'm getting confused. So, Friends of Waldale, which is the school project, that isn't supported. Netherton Community Centre, which was 2,000, isn't supported. Thornsbridge Cricket Club isn't
Not
supported.
supported.
Hepworth Band thought it was a nice application, but we thought, would we want to go as far as 5,000? So we're thinking of a reduced grant to Hepworth. Is that agreed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Homley Scouts, similar, and we thought we may fund the tables but not the bollards. That was an option. Is that what you've done on your calculations, Jen?
No.
You take the
Yes.
bollard one?
I had included the full amount of number 7 Homley Scouts at the moment, 5,000.
That's why it's in at 5 on your calculations, okay.
So you could reduce that. You could then reduce number 8 as well, and you could get that £2,000.
We only have to get £1,175 back. You don't have to make it.
So who's got the accurate, well, I know you're both doing figures, so you're doing it on the computer, you're doing it by hand. So what do you think so we're talking about those last 3 could be reduced, aren't we? The Cricket Club, the Scouts and Hepworth Band could all get reduced allocations to get us to balance the budget. And what that would mean then, if the Climate Change Committee did fund it, we'd basically just be carrying a £2,000 over on this budget, wouldn't we?
So I had included the reduction for grant number 1, 1,700. I've included a reduction for grant number 6 to 3,500.
Yeah.
I hadn't reduced grant number 7,
That's the
5,000.
Scouts.
So that's the one that you could look at. And I hadn't reduced number 8.
Is it worth, have you got like the shopping list of 7 and 8, Jen? That you can just, I have my calculator, unfortunately videoing the meeting, so I
The
can't.
difference though between the total that you've just given with the max amount is surely going to be an overspend of £1,175.
Yes, that's right.
So we actually only need to remove £1,175
That is correct.
from the full totals. So it's just how we want to.
Well, I was just going to suggest if we can do it by working through one of the shopping lists of the Scouts or.
Yeah, well if I'm looking at the Homley Cricket Club, we could just shave one of these items off here for a start. So if we didn't pay for the planters, that would reduce.
Not Homley.
Thumb.
Upperthorne Cricket Club.
Cricket Club, sorry.
Could you use your calculator, Jen, and work out?
I
So we
tried to
try-
find a shopping list first of all.
Right, 6 of their application, I've got it here, Jen.
Well, why don't we remove the removing the planters?
Remove
takes off
the-
£870.
870 if we didn't fund the planters.
Yeah.
And because they're only 145 quid each, they could buy as many as they could afford, couldn't they, or something like that. And it wouldn't really ruin the scheme. So that's,
Actually, it's £300 to take off something else.
and then probably be more minded to take it off the Scouts or off the windows. The windows we've already reduced 5,000 to 3,500, haven't we?
We have given them quite a lot of money over recent years, so I'd be quite happy to give them 3,200 rather than 3,500. It's still a significant chunk of their money. It's over 60% of the budget.
Yeah.
Or sorry, 60% of what they've asked for.
So we'd leave the Scouts to have both bollards and
Yeah.
table funding in full.
And what are we giving to the Cricket Club?
416961
Oh, we're
minus
just doing
870.
So that's 3299.61.
3299.61.
Have you got 3?
We still need 5 quid.
That's taking 870 off, that's what he said.
Yeah, because we don't include the planters.
Do you want to give the Scouts
There's-
one
there's-
table
there's-
less?
So what
Well,
was
let's move it off the Hepworth Band. We made them £3,195. That was it, wasn't it?
Why are we giving this that?
We've saved 4 pence.
Can't we just up those by 4 pence? We might as well. We're
I
giving them a round of
haven't
money.
got digits to do that. Okay.
Say 4 pence then.
Okay, so for the record, on the ones we've just altered, so Hepworth Band are now Jen and Rich confirm the figure.
Petworth Band, £3,195.
£5.04.
The Scouts have got £5,000, 100% of the request.
Yeah.
And the Upperthorne Cricket Club have got their request minus the planters, which came to
£3,299.61.
happy to close the considerations at that point with a zero budget.
Yeah.
That's painless.
So in terms of the 2,000 quid from SESC that will very likely appear, is this 2,000 quid just going to slide into general reserves then? Is that what we're kind of agreeing?
Well, should we see if there's any desire to use it in the next budget?
Well, we can't move it between the budgets unless we go to council with it.
No, I know, but there might be something, I can't remember, but there might be something that comes up in this that we want to recommend, but we don't need to use it, do we?
We don't need to use
So
it.
we shouldn't just spend it just because it's in another budget, which wasn't in this.
Yeah, we managed to fund it out this budget, so in theory we don't need to even
So we
ask.
can just leave it, yeah. But I'm just saying it
So it
might
rolls
be.
in your budget, it rolls in the climate change budget. Unless they have, because they might have other projects. to run from. Okay, going for,
Chair, I think in terms of that energy audit, I think lots and lots of community halls and centres have been in exactly the same boat, and it would be brilliant if the climate emergency committee kind of like pulled something together to support a broad programme. You know, so whoever the energy audit is that's going to be doing, say, Homer Library, if there's a deal to be done for them to do 15 buildings, that might be really helpful. If climate exchange, the climate emergency committee kind of looks at it in that rather than piecemeal applications, because there's loads of them doing the same boat, and if there isn't an approach that will help all of them, it's going to be a bit like who comes first into it.
With that in mind, can we check that whether the Brock Coles Village Trust have been sent the energy audits and done online?
Yeah.
are they looking to use the same people, do you know?
They are.
Yeah, I was at the Brockville Village Trust meeting last week, and
So are you sort of saying if climate change have got money left,
well,
they could say, well, try and fund another couple of these for the community buildings?
well, yeah, but I would have said maybe in a more coordinated way. So I haven't looked at the report, but the report might say stuff that's kind of blindingly obvious for every single building. But whoever's doing the energy audits, it might be better to say, we want you to come and do a week's worth of audits going through a dozen buildings. How much will that be, rather than doing it? But then of course, the next bit to be conscious of is then when it says that they only need LED lighting and it's going to be £3 or £4 per building, there'll be 12 halls all saying, can we have some help with redoing our lighting? But that's part of the purpose of it, isn't it? That's part of why the money's been allocated and set aside.
Yes, but also the learning from the buildings that have been done already should be applicable to many of the buildings across the valley, which are all.
And if we do it piecemeal, we'll be reinventing the wheel all the time, won't we? That's what I'm thinking. Whereas
I question whether each building needs an audit, because I think a lot of the buildings are the same era, they're the same challenges, they're the same.
Yeah, and I think so. So maybe it's one for the climate emergency to think about how it might want to approach it.
So we can't really minute that, but you've heard the words of Charles. They're fun words, and that's, it's an admirable
I'll chisel on a piece of stone. You put it up.
But at the moment, we're not making a decision to refer anything to any other committee at the moment for the minutes. Right, okay, next ones, again, we've got quite a few of these, some of them are repeat customers. So the first one's Homeforth Festival of Folk.
Sorry, can I just ask at the beginning, in terms of projects and events,
Yeah.
If everybody was to be successful, what would you add up to? Do we know?
I think which is like
£17,076.
we've got. It's not that far
Oh,
away.
but one of them's asked for 1,980, which they can't have, so that immediately knocks 980 off. So £16,096. So you're trying to find £2,000.
So if there's a couple we weren't happy with, then basically already we can fund them really. If there is something in here, and I think there's one that there's an issue with the powers anyway, is for the schools. So should we just go through these in the same process? Home Festival of Folk asking for exactly what they've asked for in the past, pretty much actually road closures.
Yes.
People have to support that. Friends of Family Library, we heard their very long presentation. Fantastic project. I'm really interested to know how the Babies into Books work and Book Boy Line. Lovely project.
Great project.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chair, could I just go back to the Festival of Folk? Is that one that maybe we should just make a commitment to help?
Yeah,
Yes.
it is.
Yes,
It is.
that's exactly, in the grant review group, that and the film festival are exactly in that category.
Right.
But we need to go to council and agree which ones it's going to apply
Yeah.
to. There'll probably be about 6, I would imagine, something
We
like that.
hopefully do that after May with the new
Yeah.
council.
I think it'll take about 3 meetings before it actually formally becomes a... But the intention has been agreed, doesn't it?
So the next one, I actually have got some thoughts on. So we're talking now about the Honley Business Association, and this is the Open Garden event.
No, it's not 100.
Have I missed one?
No, I said Mary's got 100.
Yeah, Mary.
No, I was just thinking, this looks to me like a money raising event, and well, certainly in the new scheme of things, we're not, well, certainly in the past we haven't funded events which are primarily money raising events.
Well, I shared.
Friends of Honley, it seemed rather odd, just the whole thing seemed a bit strange to me.
You know, I'm sure it's a lovely event. My view is the same as Mary's. They actually say themselves, we hope to raise funds for the Friends of Honley in the region of 10,000. So we're asking £1,000 contribution to help them raise 10,000, which in turn they actually give away to charities anyway. So in the new grant world, which we're not in, we would class this as a fundraising event that doesn't need. It should be funded out of the funds that are raised, which we could still hold that view tonight. I'm sure it's a lovely event. It's obviously very popular if it raises that much more. Rachel?
I agree with the concerns about it raising lots of funds for other things. It does seem a very long-winded way of raising money for the village, but I do think there is merit in supporting their desire for toilet hire, because I'm conscious that that's something which Honley lacks as a provision, which obviously Hereford has the fortune of having a public toilet facility, but there isn't one in Honley. They refer to that specifically in its an itemised item. So personally, I would support us giving that specific £300 towards toilet hire, because I think, I mean, the Honley Business Association in its entirety does a lot to try and improve the village, and I do think having toilet facilities is really key.
I mean, that's in a partly why I'm sort of more sympathetic, because I think they do some fantastic work in the area, and if you think of their broader programme of things, this is a small contribution to what's actually a great set of work they do. So I wouldn't die in a ditch over my concerns about fundraising, personally. Sean, have you?
I think that the Gardens Festival, I think it's happened once before, I think. I think it attracted quite a lot of visitors to Honley, and it was a really, I suppose from a cultural point of view, a really positive event, really, you know. I'd be quite happy to support a grant of some kind going towards it, whether it be for the Loos or over and above that. I'm okay with either.
Well, so we're leaving it in the positive part for now, yeah? From what everybody's saying.
Yeah.
Mary, you can talk about what you say.
I'm not a fussed about it.
The Lions, I mean, this is arguably another fundraising event, but I feel this one, I just think they deserve it for the amount of effort they put in, the hours they put in trailing around in the cold. And if we could get them a slightly better sleigh, then isn't that okay?
It's more environmentally friendly.
I asked Can anybody in this room say no to Santa? Bearing in mind that the risks that brings.
Scrooge's on Hong Parish Council.
I for one do not want another cold at Christmas. I got everything to do.
So we think,
Yeah, I think we should.
well done, Rick, good application, very, a very, they only asked for 500 quid at the end of the day. So moving now on to the Hangford Cricket Club, which was just equipment for the juniors, wasn't it, really?
For this one, I'm happy to support them in some way, but looking at the equipment, I guess I was thinking that again we want things that last for a bit longer, so I wasn't sure that we wanted to pay for all of the equipment. So if we were short of money, I was going to suggest bats, balls and wickets would be £600. Because you know we've, to be fair, in our previous deliberations, have supported by goals and in some respect wickets are the equivalent for cricket.
Yes, we have also read the issue with not buying basic bits of equipment, and maybe that's going to be in the new regime.
So you think it could go forward but with a reduced allocation?
Yeah, we'll just suggest maybe don't give the full amount, but so I was suggesting £600 would cover the bats, balls and wickets.
Okay. Something I can
Not lots.
suggest.
Yeah,
And they have had £8,000 previously and £2,000 previous.
Yeah.
I know it was 2,000 towards the £8,000 round defence. But a very well supported club, isn't it, and active.
It is, yeah. Good stuff.
So the next one, people may have comments on. This was a school, basically it's a school budget to take people to place of worship for studying religion as part of PCSE.
Yeah. This is part of the curriculum, isn't it? Yeah. I take the point. But I think this certainly benefits only the pupils of the school. And why can't they get a bus? Go to the same mosque on a bus. So it's part of the event. So they're having a coach. I think it's no for that one. No from me. Anyway.
And Richard commented that there were again question marks about legal power that we could use for this anyway. Is there any strong, I'm opposed to this for that way. I just think that's a precedent which we've struggled to.
Yeah. I'm comfortable with not giving this, but we have had some, if you like, round the houses discussions about funding schools. I think, well, we've said yes, we've said no, we've said yes, we've said no. It would be really helpful, perhaps, if we had.
I think that's what applies, isn't it?
A very clear,
that's the plan.
It's very
clear
clear.
rule on that.
It is very clear in the grant, the new grant criteria. Exclusion.
This would clearly fall outside of the new.
It would very clearly.
And I know this is a friends of group wanting to support the Parent Teachers Association, wanting to support the school trips. But however they do it, it's parent teachers should be fundraising for the schools, and the Friends of Wooldale. Oh no, that's a different one, but yeah, they need to be fundraising for their own activities rather than somebody else's activities.
Okay. So the next one is last of the summer wine to come round again, 50 years this time. My issue with this, I'm not a fan of the show, but I do think it's a massively significant thing for the town, and the town, there's lots of people think it's a really important thing for the history of the town. It's who's the applicants describe themselves as a loose gang of businesses that have come together to deliver this. And they say there is no committee, there's nobody in charge, which sort of raises the question, who would we funding? Because we're sort of funding, it's largely businesses, but there is other people there who aren't businesses. And I can see them all come together as a sort of collaboration to make something happen, and I'm sure it'll be a great programme and really popular. But when I asked Rich, they haven't, it doesn't actually say on here, it's been redacted. They have given us the name of a bank account, haven't they?
No, well, no, they haven't. They've given us a name of a possible bank account.
Which I think this possible bank account is the, how can
Yeah,
I
the
explain this?
old.
The business association there's been a change of leadership and direction, and the old players seem to have formed another business association, but they haven't got a bank account yet. So what I don't know is who we're giving the money to, and equally, because if they haven't got a bank account, they haven't got a constitution, how are they ensuring the event, how are they, so it's less about the spirit of what they're trying to do, it's more just about the logistics of who we're funding under what banner.
What we could safely fund, perhaps, is some of the civic activity by paying it directly to the civic, right? So the room hire.
Well, one of my suggestions to Rich was would have been more helpful in some ways if the application had come from the civic.
Yeah.
They'd said we're the lead consortium player, or
Well, Liz is listed, isn't she? Liz Anna is listed in
Yeah.
there.
because the application's actually come from a woman who's involved with SIDS CAF, hasn't she?
George, could you just clear up for me, because are there now two businesses? Has the old one transmogrified
I'm
into
told
some-
there's 3 now.
Oh, right.
I'm told there's 2, and what's
Into
that? Really?
this, because I know there's a new one that John Hammond Booth seems to be taking the lead on, so that seems very active. But this isn't this one, is it? This is something that I mean, I feel that there isn't an organisation here to in a sense contract with or give a grant with.
Rachel might know
I
this.
think that basically, well, there used to be HEAD, as it was, which was Home for Enterprise and Development. That basically sort of died to death, but I think had a few funds left, and I'm not quite sure what happened to those funds. But the new business association, which is kind of the new kid on the block, if you like, which seems to have a majority support amongst, or at least it's certainly got a lot more interest from businesses than the previous one, which was sort of seen as divisive in the end. It's called Home for Business Together, and I know I went to one of their first face-to-face meetings, which was only last month, and they're setting it up as a limited company.
So that's the new one, is it?
It's a new one,
Right,
but
so
I don't think
that's-
they've got a bank account.
Yeah, that's this.
But what they should have
That's
done
this.
really is that the obvious thing to do is use that as an umbrella for this, because Laura spoke at that event about with doing the summer wine thing, and effectively they have a little, there's an event group that's looking after it. And the new business association is trying not to sort of, be telling people what to do. It's just providing a forum for doing it. But I think what's difficult is that really Laura et al. Would have made more sense if they'd spoken to John and used the emerging structure and clarified with us, and then there'd be a structure even if it was while the organisation Home First Businesses Together is being formally created. In the interim, this is the situation, but
Yeah.
it does, I think, leave us in a situation where it's rather difficult to support it.
Because in the bank account details and on the unredacted, I can't remember whether I redacted from it. So it basically says we are hoping to use the bank account of Home First Businesses Together. Details to follow.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we haven't seen that then?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
fine.
on-
Have we?
Yeah, it is
Sorry,
on
I missed
there,
that.
Well, if it's in that account, then that's
But they're hoping to use it. It's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
It's
the only. Well, we could still make an award subject to them getting some clarity on one whose account are they using and who's the lead applicant, and have they got permission to do that? Because it's a fairly low budget for what will actually be, they're going to put things on the website, there's going to be events in the town, in the civic hall, there's,
And it's effectively another festival, but a one-off festival rather than a
Yeah.
And the way it was presented at the business meeting that I went to, and in fact they've got another meeting at some point this month, so it must be in the next week or so, which, I was only invited for Christmas reason rather than as a parish council, so it is, you know, it's all about businesses. But I think I would support giving an offer conditional on confirmation of suitable bank details. So I don't know, you can't put it into someone's personal account, it's just not, can't be done.
Yeah, well they do state that they're hoping to use Home First Business together. I was trying to clarify over the weekend what the names of the new business associations were. Because I did understand there was a split, and there's also a separate WhatsApp group which other businesses are on as well. But, so are we broadly supportive of the idea and principle? It's just this, we need to be legally sure where the money's gone and who's accounting for it.
Well, as a minimum, we could pay the civic director, couldn't we? And then at least we know where that money's gone. So we could offer them 400 quid as a minimum, and then if they can actually produce a proper organisation and account, we can go further, can't we?
Seems a shame not to fund the summer winos. 150
It's an important event in Holmfirth, isn't it?
I mean, we've already turned down one account.
I don't think we're going to be short of money necessarily. I just think we need, but that could be
Because we
worth
have the
it.
documentation.
Or equally, the civic could hold all the money, and then they could pay these bills for these artists.
Well, that's the other bit, and I would guess, because I know Liz quite well, because Liz's boys on the football team. Liz would probably be comfortable with doing that if asked.
Yeah. So we've got two options going forward. One we need to resolve it, but they either do it through the business association, and we can suggest if that, for whatever, can't happen, would the civic front it and hold the money on their behalf? Yeah.
Just make sure we work Home First Businesses together, because that's what it's called.
But we won't have any of the other documentation, will we? Or we've already turned one on the application now.
Well, the new business association should be getting its own documentation, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
But then it needs to come in their name, not just their bank
It needs
account.
to come into their name. I still feel as though it's a good idea, but I still feel a bit uneasy about funding it, because it seems to me there's a lot missing from this application.
So what I was saying, that we need them to provide us the name, and that organisation needs to make a democratic decision that they're happy to front it, and then they can submit their constitution and their bank account, and money will go into that bank account. And that can either be the civic or the business
I mean,
association.
they have no constitution, they say so, don't they? And then no bank statements. And I still feel a bit uneasy about going with the majority.
No. I think we're on the same territory. That's why I was saying it needs to be fronted by a proper organisation. So the civics or the new business association would be another.
Yeah.
It has to be something. The money has to go to something solid, something that meets the rules.
Meets some of the rules.
So what you've decided on the amount, whether it's the 400 or the full 4,000, it will be conditional upon them clarifying which organisation is fronting it, constitution for that organisation, and all the other documentation and bank account details.
Okay, so the next one's from the Home First Town Junior Football Club. This one that's in excess of £1,000. They requested £1,980, so they could only have 1,000. Is there any comments in the room?
Yeah, I thought this was a really vague application. And I'm supportive of paying for the first aid courses, which feels like something where there's a tangible benefit, but I thought, again, looking at hardship, having a hardship fund, generally organising events, we're not quite sure, we might do something, equipment, we're not quite sure what the costs are, just general. So I felt that the thing that was really pinned down was the first aid courses.
Do you think it's first aid? I thought the Football Association.
Well,
Level 1 coaching badge, which presumably includes first aid.
yeah, for all of those it'll be a blend of stuff. So it'll be like safeguarding, first aid,
Unseen first aid.
health. Well,
Yeah,
health and safety would be alright.
I think it's football coaching.
We have a track record of doing this
First aid.
for funding
No,
courses.
doesn't it?
It does say first aid and extra E on it, yeah.
So we have funded coaching volunteers costs for gaining coaching qualifications for young people in the past, and it has been that specific. The summer gala event, I'm a bit like, well, if you go to the football galas, then they are a massive money spinning opportunity for whoever's hosting them, because it's just like there's 1,000 kids and 1,000 parents, and you know it's almost like a guaranteed fare. So they make a fortune off of those if you've got space. Hardship funds, I'm totally uncomfortable with that. Our Homely Juniors does it along the lines of if you struggle with your subscription payments, speak to the welfare officer. This is something like a proactive thing. I don't like the sound of it at all. And ongoing equipment hire costs again.
It's very vague, isn't it? It's not.
But the coaching stuff, I think is fine. I think that's
Yeah, I think, well, I got the impression we all probably agree with that. I mean, I was also similarly uncomfortable with the lack of detail for, because I can understand, I'm assuming a lot of clubs sort of say to certain children, don't worry about those fees, or don't worry about that, we'll find the money. And they sort of do it quietly in the background.
yeah.
But if they've costed that,
They
and
all
said
do.
this is what it does,
Yeah.
then that'd be a reasonable application, but they haven't really done that, have they? It's sort of lacking on all of it, and they've got a lot of, well, they're saying they haven't got any reserves, but then I think their bank account card they had, so.
I'm, as far as I'm aware of, certainly all the stuff my kids are involved in, every single one of them, Scouts, Beavers, football, the whole shooting match, they all have that welfare bit, which is, if you're struggling, speak to us, because it's about not making a charge. So it's like they want 500 quid to fund themselves, rather than saying 20 kids pay and 3 kids don't. It's like they're wanting to collect the money for the 3 kids that are not charging. That's the bit I struggle with.
I think we're all of one mind on this, sorry. Coaching, really not saying we'd support the coaching costs, but the other costs, because of lack of information, or they just haven't broken down what that means, have they really? If they've given us a breakdown of the equipment like the junior cricket club had, we might be more minded to support it, but is that a fair assumption of where we're at?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's 480 proposal for that one going forward. Then we've got one I really liked actually, this one. See if everybody else agrees on that. So this is for the Scouts, but it's actually for a promotional campaign, isn't it, to recruit people in scouting and volunteers. So is this the one? You weren't declaring a proper interest in this, were you, Charles?
No, not this one.
The district.
It was the other one. The district one is
Yeah.
fine.
So it's the sort of administrative sort of area that covers all the different scout groups and all.
Yeah, so home is the 6th or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, have we lost some more along the way then?
Well, they say in the application that Netherton's just gone to the wall, and I'd heard Meltham were really struggling for volunteers as well.
I think this was a good
So it
idea.
seemed like it was a recruitment drive, really, isn't it? A
Yeah.
promotional
Yeah.
drive
Yeah.
with associated costs. But I mean, they are carrying reserves. They do mention that, which is true, that they have got young people going off to the Jamboree and other costs, which we're aware of anyway, because we've discussed that. Full support.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Nest resident in the tech upstairs one. I know about this project again because I'm working with them in my day job. They are a community interest company, but I do know the worker doesn't actually take a wage for the work she does on this particular work at the moment.
Is that lady from Melbourne? Corey, Tracy.
No, this is the one that's based at the tech. This one called Rebecca. It's probably redacted. Well, I'll tell you what she's done.
Yeah, I'll edit that out of the video.
I mean, it's equipment costs and also some extra sessions in school holidays, isn't it? thoughts on this for anybody?
I thought it was rather thin, a thin application. I was struggling to understand the organisation. It's one of these difficult community interest companies, isn't it really? So you really need to know a bit more about it. And there wasn't, I couldn't find anything about it being community, community owned or directed by the community.
Well, I can try and fill the gaps, but see if there's
Yeah,
any,
you just
see if
said
there's
that.
any, see if there's any other questions that anybody else has got. If it helps, so, go on, John.
Are they already running? Are they already doing things?
Yes, what's actually happened there was another organisation called an SCIC, run by two women, who basically no longer own the business. Rebecca's basically taken over that business with a couple of other directors, and she is running things like she's doing, there's a dance project that she's got one of the volunteers running on, she's doing stay and play projects, she's doing parental advice drop-ins. There's a whole host of stuff she's doing that's growing all the time actually in that space. And this just looks like some extra equipment that she's needed for the activities, but it is open, it's free at the point of use, it's not hardly any of it's chargeable, most of the stuff I'm aware of isn't, but mostly because it's been funded by the NHS for stay and play sessions and parental drop-ins and other things. She does seem to be well regarded.
I mean, this just shows the importance of writing a good application, really, doesn't it? Because in terms of how many people involved in running our group, we have one manager and then other hirers who provide regular or ad hoc sessions, and I don't really understand what the structure of this organisation is, but it sounds as
Does
though
it
they're doing
avoid the
really
kind
good stuff.
Does it avoid the kind of sole trader thing that you?
Yeah, I guess it is. I think.
Well, there will be other directors on the group apart from her, but the main person will be her, who's the person who delivers. But I know there are volunteers working there because they're doing the dad's work and helping out at some of the other sessions. But I'm giving information that's not on the form, which isn't helpful.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are three. I mean, we've got three directors listed here.
Okay.
A lead and two others. So
So it's not just one person.
it's not just one person. Despite it saying that's on the thing.
What we could do though is if ours 555, which we could still give, we should pay the room hire and not the funding for the room. And we're not paying just the individual.
And making a contribution towards the tax costs as well, then, because that room house effectively goes straight to the.
Because effectively they're getting the same amount of money that they've requested, probably not
Yeah.
giving it for the cost of the staff. But
So we fund the equipment and the room hire, which would.
It'd be 555.
which is still 555.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to do that.
Do we have any idea how many people are likely to attend?
I've only seen I've only seen photographs on Facebook of people who were there. There was more than a couple. There was like 10 or 12 parents with 10 or 12 kids.
So I don't know something missing from this application form because he was using different application forms, slightly different versions, aren't there? But I'm wondering we have a kind of gloss about address these issues in your application. And one of them is about about beneficiaries and
Because I look at
it's very thin.
I look at this and I just think like, well, okay, so this is somebody who's effectively low wage semi-social enterprise. They're looking to do an activity which I'm generally comfortable with, but it's almost a bit like if they've got a good turnout, it'll be beneficial. If not, it's not at all. To me, this kind of depends upon what it generates, and I guess we'll only know that afterwards. But we do ask for them to provide some feedback in terms of how the event went. I think I'd be interested to get an idea about what kind of numbers they had if they're ever going to ask for money again in the future, for sure.
Okay, well, I think we've got a way forward in terms of the budget that's going to fund, which will include the art workers.
So are you talking about funding that to the tune of 250 then?
No.
No,
5.5, but we'd fund the
Room hire.
element, not the casual workers.
So swap in the 250 for the other 250.
Okay.
Next one, Mary's not going to comment on this one because it's about recreation and it's a coronation extravaganza. Yeah, I suppose this does raise the question of, do we think, well, I know you're just promoting a council pot, but that's only up to £100, isn't it, that what we're saying to the public? So the public facing grant scheme that's just been pushed out wouldn't touch the sides for the ambitions of the Friends of Cliffrack.
This is true.
Alex, any thoughts on this?
I think we should support it as a council, because I think Cliffrack is sort of, has, I guess, historically been used for celebrating such royal events. It is a one-off event, and previously we had thought there would probably be some sort of beacon lighting event, and we probably would have supported that. But the future king, current king, doesn't want to have a beacon event, but that doesn't mean there's no coronation celebrated. So personally, I think we should support it. I think if we're short of funds, we should then
But
ask
that's
for
if we
it.
are, isn't it?
But I don't think we will.
Okay, any other thoughts? I'd just echo that, I think it's, I mean, so far this is the only thing I know of any significance that's being planned and promoted really, and it is the Jubilee Field, or whatever it's called. The designation of that site was, recognised by the monarch. So,
And it's sort of open to all and quite,
yes,
well-known site in Cardiff.
we've got a track record of organising things up there, so I've got no issues with that whatsoever. Full support for that?
Yeah.
For £951 being requested, so what are we not funding? We're funding.
You're not funding the school worship trips.
We've reduced.
No, sorry, I mean, what element of their figures? Oh, we're not funding the sound system. Right, Waldale Youth, this is the group that I've been working with a little bit behind the scenes, so I've not seen this application until I sent it out. So there's actually two projects in one here. There's the youth club and there's also the stay and play sessions. Parent toddlers. Any thoughts on this?
I didn't find it particularly well detailed application, to be honest. I have to read it several times to understand what it's talking about. Because I don't think they're very clear about exactly how many people they engage with, and I thought it was interesting their income and expenditure is exactly the same, and they've got no reserves at all, which didn't seem very sustainable really. But I'm not averse to us giving. I'm a bit uncomfortable with us paying their rent, to be honest. But the equipment, I'm more sympathetic with that. Equipment would be used, but I don't know much about the group or how much these are used. I just didn't think it was a well-written application, so I found it difficult to navigate exactly what they were asking for and why they were in this situation, what their rent was before, were they completely rent-free before. It just wasn't clear, basically.
Do you want me to answer those questions?
If you can, yeah.
Well, I know the answers. The reason their accounts balance perfectly is because they literally run out of a metal box where they just take 50p off the kids, put it in the box, and they've been doing that for decades. So they've never had a bank account, they've literally just had a cash box. Because they met for free in the Waldale Methodist, which is opposite the Waldale pub, which has now been sold and gone to auction.
Okay.
So they lost their premises I was part of the conversations about relocating them to another premises, and they moved to the Free Methodist down the road that some people call Lane Chapel, that's opposite the wall.
Young Free Methodist, you mean?
So, after some negotiations, they're in there, and the people who run that, who have equally got a very ageing congregation,
Yeah.
and would like a contribution towards the space.
Yeah.
So, but they've only ever charged the kids next to nothing, because it's just come to the youth club, pay 50p on the door, and you can spend 50p on the tuck shop, and they've worked on
Okay.
that historic, like good old youth clubs used to work,
Yeah, yeah.
still in that vein. So that's why they've not got their own constitution, they've not got their own books, because they've literally just done it
Yeah,
with cash.
actually, thanks, wasn't it?
So what they're actually sustaining for me, they're keeping the youth club going by relocating, making a contribution towards the other chapel. There's issues with storage boxes and other things because they haven't been packed, so which is why some of the things are storage boxes and the crash mats, because the other project that only just started at the chapel was basically a stay and play for mums and toddlers type provision. So the same group of volunteers are running both projects, but they're very unused to it, but they've never applied for a penny anywhere before, never filled an application form, didn't have a constitution, didn't have a bank account. So they've now got a constitution, they've got a bank account, but it's all very new. But for me, I thought it's a tenner a week for both projects, and we're sustaining 2 community projects in Wildale, so I was keen to support it if that was
For me, it's the same issue as that next one. Depends. I'm happy to support it. I'd like to know what the numbers are, what the impact is. But I'm happy enough to give the 1,000. Well, obviously, I think it's whilst they've been running for a while, they haven't a change in venue and a bit of a refresh. You know, the numbers might change. That toddlers group, if it's on just started, that's going to be a bit vague on numbers, isn't it? But
I think the kids, I'm sure they're getting 20, they were getting 20 in, because they'd capped it in the previous place at 20.
So is the youth club element just kids coming from after they've left school for that kind of thing? Or is it?
No, it's an evening youth club. It's sort of like a 7 till 8 or whatever I want it called. It's very.
It's not with parents then, because it's a 6 to 11-year-old. So I just wondered, 6 is pretty young.
Well, it's what they call junior. We used to call them play. What did we used to call it? It's sort of play work, stroke junior youth work, but junior youth work works with usually 8 actually, but yeah, they want to accompany children that are there.
yeah, but it's not. Are you meaning is this an after-school club for free? Or,
No, it's not an after school. It's an evening youth club as far as.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was wondering how it was.
It might be they might start at 6 while 8 or something like that. I'm not sure what the times were. It's not associated with the school.
I feel it needs, it's doing good stuff and it needs supporting, but I'm just concerned about the quality of the application really.
Yeah, I'm sure that's.
Did you get the other documentation that's needed? Did that come?
Well,
Constitutional.
They haven't got any bank notes. They only just have the bank account, haven't they? But she did send a cash book, didn't she?
we had a constitution which they'd written a few weeks before, hadn't we?
Yes. Yeah.
First.
And they sent some narrative with the turnover of the 2 organisations.
Yeah,
didn't they?
so
'Cause she's literally got a hard book that she just writes down every week what they've done, and she just tried to.
Yeah, so they sent us, that was their accounts basically, a list of money they had coming, you know, it wasn't a proper accounts thing, it's just the money they've got coming in and money they've got going out, which as Councillor Hawley says is exactly the same. And then you've got a narrative report saying they've just opened a bank account, they've run for 18 years, we're on 100% volunteers. Yeah, it's a shame they don't have numbers, but they're telling you things, but without actual detail, the important stuff of how effective
I
it
mean,
is.
we're not being asked to pay all of their costs, so they're obviously having to find some monies from
Well, the chance,
well,
just
true, but
chance for
yeah,
assessment.
I suppose one thing I think, just sort of wider council consideration, but I think the service provision and the budget setting for next year, the fact that we've obviously set aside a lot for youth provision, I feel like there's, maybe other councils have got more of a grasp of this than I have, but we need some sort of understanding of how many of these different little things, groups exist, because they're all doing great work, but I think it would be helpful to have a bit more visibility, even if it's just from the grants we've had, recently, to understand where are all these, baby toddler groups, that sort of thing, because I think they're often, some are under the radar, and then obviously we have big discussions about, Cafe 100, and I know that sometimes they're operating to support different age groups, but I do think if the council had more of a sort of appreciation of which villages had these provisions, be it running out of the church and whatever, then we need to, that would just make decisions easier, I think. Because it often feels like, oh wow, I didn't know that was going on in Hampton Chapel and Halldown.
I presume getting, obviously getting support, you know about them, so I presume getting support.
Well, they're now tied in with the network of support people, including me as the anchor, but also the family hub worker for the council. So they are tied into those groups now, but they have just existed almost like a long lost tribe. Really.
Yes.
Because there's very few of them. In youth clubs, there's very few of those, but I think you're right, in Mums and Toddlers, there's some of those are just operating in back of a cricket club on a Tuesday and nobody really knows about them or connects them.
Well, yeah, I mean, the issue then is about the awareness for them, but a lot of them will be self-funding or, it will be pocket change. I think the bit for me is, for this one, it's a transition, so it's about them getting back on the feet again. So I wouldn't, if they needed more support in the future, I'd be saying, well, either increase your numbers or increase your session fee or do both. I think it's that bit is that nest one is one where I think, well, like, to get it established, that's fine, but was we coming back again? What people are being helped and supported, and can they afford to pay? If they can't afford to pay, is this the right thing for them? I think our coordinated provision has been decimated. It's all community based, and so when it's something where you think, well, it is very hit and miss in terms of who's overseeing it, what's it doing, who's getting to it, and that's the bit where I feel a bit where it doesn't work. I don't know what the answer is to it really.
Okay, we've got 10 minutes. We've got
£1,000 for this.
So that's, we have to fund that on. Yeah. Children's Art School. Another project's actually based in the tech underneath. But they're involved with lots of other projects in Huddersfield actually. I don't know if you know, they're making Makerspace on the piazza and other things, so that's why their turnover's quite high actually, but that doesn't really reflect the activity they do at the tech.
I thought this was quite a good application, and it's from a sort of identity of an own valley point of view. It's nice that we're taking part in the Woven in Kirklees Festival and being represented and visible as a community within that. And I think it's quite interesting to talk about raising awareness for local families about the diversity within Kirklees. I think it's quite a well presented justification for why we should fund them. And I think they've been well established in the valley for a while, and it's done its help for us in the past.
Any other comments? I think it shows the difference between people who are well practiced, good writers who apply to Arts Council and other people who turn over quite a lot of money, and people who never did it before really, their approach to it. So yeah, it was a really clear application, wasn't it? Right, the next we've got the trilogy. We've got 3 applications for Homley Village Trust.
All in one email, Will.
So we need to take them one by one. And the first, but they do differ. Talked about them to confuse things. The tree one is basically I think is an interesting biodiversity project. It's almost like an audit of the trees down in Magdale, because the Humley Village Community Trust, those that don't know, have got various projects as well as the village hall. They've got an interest in the Magdale. They've also historically been the umbrella group that looked after Friends of Humley and the Humley Youth Project. So there's various things happen under their leadership, but the first two are basically events, an Easter event, a coronation event. And I don't know if we've got a view on multiple applications from one organisation. I don't even think we covered that in the grant audit.
I think you can have multiple applications if they're for distinctly different things. I mean, personally, sort of the coronation one, again, coronation's kind of a one-off thing rather than it happens every year. So I'd be sort of tempted to support it, in that they've put together a project and we haven't had many. I thought we might get quite a few big coronation type projects, so it's nice to have one that's come from Humley, having had that one from Friends of Clifford before. Easter event, maybe. Tree survey, I don't think it's about biodiversity, it's about safety. It's the safety of the trees. So it's actually quite I don't think we can push it onto a climate emergency if you were looking at that. Because I think it's about, well, in fact they say it's a safety survey on the basis of diseased trees, which is the reality of managing a woodland.
I think it's
Have to go through it.
if you
You're
know,
absolutely right, actually.
if you know Magdale, there's a sort of mill pond there, isn't there? There's a bank. I think we've had problems before with trees growing on the bank, and when they die, potentially causing weakness.
Well, there should never be planted.
No.
So it's damned if you do, damned if you
Yeah,
don't,
yeah.
isn't it? But,
I think they're just
that's why
sprouted there, haven't they?
yeah, but that's why it's a far more involved job than just like the health of the trees, like a regular tree, because it is all that bit about the how and what to do with them, isn't it, for the retention of the dam and banking.
I'd support giving money for the tree survey because I think it's an important part of keeping that
Yeah.
area publicly accessible and safe to
Yeah.
use really. And I think that can be viewed very differently from the events.
One of the concerns I got about this, which things that you can't see because I looked through their accounts and the bank statements, and the accounts actually showed £89,000 in a ring fence pot for Friends of Humley, which, knowing that Friends of Humley are primarily picking up rubbish on a fairly regular basis, I think there's lots of issues actually with how. I don't think it's a reason not to fund them. But I think the organisation, because it's sort of spawned various other projects, and particularly Humley Youth, a lot of the money that I think is the Humley Youth money, I think in the accounts is sat in the Friends of Humley pot, but it's a significant part of money.
There should be two big pots. So one of them, you're right, should be the Humley Youth pot, which is Friends of Humley. The other one is for the refurb of the village hall when they actually get to do that, which they've been reserving for like last 30 years. But they're waiting on the asset transfer, which is dragging its heels. Yeah. So at that point it'll be a big project, but I can't remember what they said. But did you say there were 80 odd?
One of the, when I looked on the full audited accounts, there was just a reference to it.
Yeah.
But it's obviously, it doesn't match the figures they've put in here as their turnovers, but I know that's because it's a confused organisation. I don't mean that in a negative way.
No, they are
They've
trying
sort of
to.
grown and they are trying to sort of clarify that.
Yeah, I do believe after the coming AGM that they're kind of hopeful that the structures will become a lot clearer.
So I don't think anybody thinks anybody's got a hand in the till or
Oh,
money
no.
siphoned off. I think
No.
it's the paperwork from trying to inspect their finance papers are complicated. So I don't think there's an issue, and there has been a lot of changes, but they seem to be well led and trying to move forward, don't they, as an organisation, which is positive. And these are two, they've also got some new people who are interested in putting applications in, which is why we've got 3, I think, today from, probably written by Harriet. So, taking them all one by one then, is there support for the coronation event?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have we got support for the Easter event? It's a £780, including Easter bunny outfit.
Who's,
Long as they
who gets
use
to
it.
wear that?
And then the trees, which you quite like, actually, I read it more thoroughly, it's due to Ash Dieback, isn't it? And they actually say that the previous year it cost them nearly £5,000 for 6 days of work of tree surgery to tidy up their patch. It's a big problem for them, isn't it?
I think from a legal power point of view, it's probably quite challenging. I don't know what legal power we use for it.
Can't we use that general one?
Yeah, we could use the general one.
137 or 170.
Yeah, we could use 137. But I can't think of it. There isn't a direct one as well, I would say.
There is a limit on that 137, isn't there?
There is a limit.
We're nowhere near it, are we?
No. I think it's £9 per elector or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like 90,000.
Yeah. I'm just trying to work that one out. I think, yeah, it'd be a bit of a shocker if we got close to it.
I don't know if you notice on the agenda it says under all these, including the Children's Art Club, they were late. So there was, I think the clerk and deputy clerk were very generous in accepting creating extra work for
It
themselves.
is painful. It really is. It is not a pleasant experience, isn't it, Jim?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all credit to Rich, who kept very cool in getting all the paperwork together last week and the week before.
I think that perhaps we should think about that at some point, a bit more face, maybe, but not.
Yeah, I mean that's the difficulty though, isn't it? Because you are dealing with voluntary groups and you are dealing with people doing things in their spare time. We don't really want to be.
Yeah, it's the same with any grant making body though. I mean, a lot of them will, you've missed the deadline, and that's it, you know, a lot of applications.
I think if you make it clear to
Yeah, I
people
think
that
so.
the
Just
deadline is the
emphasise
deadline
it,
and
yeah.
you need to get it in by then. Because obviously,
Maybe,
it's
yeah.
great that you've been so flexible with people, but you know,
But they'd have ended up with 5 applications if that was the case. Because
And
you know.
maybe there's a role for councillors here as well within their work, you know, encouraging groups to push in grant applications in good time. That's a very round opinion.
Well, we're not going to resolve it. I think we need to put, when we get into the next cycle, I think we just need to make that even clearer.
Yeah, I would say so. But it's not
Because
fair.
it's an open process, so people can
It's
just
not
download
really
the
fair
form
on
at a time,
staff.
aren't they? We're not controlling it at the front end, so they
Yeah.
can download it the night before and fill it in. Which if they did that and they sent all the applications and all the information, it wouldn't be a problem. It's because they're half.
But that never happens.
So we reflect on lessons learned and we think.
So then we've got another business association application. These have got separated in the papers, but this is for a village map.
I love this. I love the way they've written. Honley needs a map. We've seen the one in Furth and we've
And I thought for reasons of parity between the two centres, it is appropriate, really.
yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So we all fully support this?
Yeah.
I like the fact that we're also going to highlight history then, and interesting facts about
Yeah.
business.
Not just the businesses.
And then we've got the film festival guys who
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
restore
Oh, yeah.
Right. And that's another one we're hoping to take forward for a regular funded organisation.
Right, so we're quite a bit under, so we're fine on that. 13,476. Have you got to?
I've got 12,871, but I'm going to trust your maths
No,
more.
I wouldn't necessarily.
I got it with, I've got that through.
Shall we recap on which?
Yeah, let's recap on
It's time for what should we just go through the one we know? Home Festival in Folk. I've got that 100%.
Yeah, 1,000.
Friends of Honley Library fully supported 750. Honley Business Association Open Gardens.
300.
300 for the luge.
Was it 300?
So we could go higher if you wanted to, actually, because this is when we have got the headroom to go higher on this, even up to 1,000. Any strong feelings? Does anybody want to go higher than just the loose?
What was the total amount?
1,000.
1,000.
Yeah, I think I'd be happy with the whole amount really.
About lose and brochure.
Well, to be honest, I'll be happy with the full amount. So I think we're going to tighten up on this next year.
Yeah.
And I think we're saying to them,
Let's go higher than what we can.
Well, we had quite a long discussion though about being concerned that they were fundamentally raising money to then passing on to other
Yes,
organisations.
exactly.
And we
Yeah,
have to,
but
we have to,
I picked that.
Well, okay, there's two strong.
Well, it's also an event, isn't it, in Homley that brings people in, and it's got a cultural significance, I think, really, you know.
Yeah, but it gives money to other organisations, fundraisers, or from their. I don't think we should give all of it. I think I'm quite happy to up what we give them. So we give them £500. I think, given the scale of concerns.
Where's Charles at? 'Cause I've got one handicap saying 1,000. I'm more relaxed about
I
that.
just think that
Two people.
we haven't scaled other ones back, and there's no need to scale them back. But if they were, I think I'd be in a different territory with you. But it is a strange one. I think we do have these kind of events which, if they're successful, generate a surplus, and then I'm comfortable that if this does generate a surplus, that money will end up one way or another being spent in the village. So I'm comfortable with that. And it's not like the money's going to go somewhere else. I'm fine with this having 1,000, but again, I think it'd be what happens in the future is a different thing. But some of this stuff, when we get the evaluation back, that's really what we should be judging future grants on in terms of what impact has it had. You know, it has. I don't know how many they've done in previous years.
Well,
they've been running pre-COVID, but that was there a national thing for them then?
Well, I remember one of them because when I was involved with the Scouts, I drove they used one of the Scout minibuses.
Yeah.
And they gave the donation to the Scouts. They didn't pay for the bus, but they gave a donation to the Scouts. And it was a day where it wasn't too bad in the morning weather-wise, but then it hammered it down in the afternoon. But in the morning it was really busy. There were loads of people getting on the bus, going from different garden to different garden. A lot of people from Homley, but also a lot of people had come in, especially to check out people's gardens from outside.
So more importantly, we've got a split decision in the room because we've got two councillors that would rather give 300 or 500 and two that want to give 1,000.
Well, I'm comfortable with 1,000.
So it's on me then.
Well, you already said.
Well, I think if we've got that, if we've got the budget, I'll go for 1,000 because I think it's a good community event. But I do think it'll fall foul with the new restrictions next year. Okay, the Lions got full amount 460 for the sleigh. The cricket club.
600.
We talked about just funding part of the equipment. Uptown school trip that fell, no grant awarded. Last till summer wine, £1,000 in full, but subject to various clarity of the applicant. The junior Homeforth Town juniors, some concerns about different elements of this, but we went with the coaching for Scouts. Mate Scouting supported in full. Nest supported in full. Friends of Cliff Wreck supported in full. You saying the rest are all full, Rich? Waldale Community Club in full. Children Art School in full. The 3 village community trust projects in full. Business Association that full, and Homeforth Film Festival.
What do you get, Jen?
I've got it to 13,572.
14,176.
What's the difference between you two? What's yours, Richard?
14,176.
So we're still below the budget.
14,176. What's yours, Jen?
You typed
13,571, but I've been doing mine in my head.
If we're both, are we happy that both the figures are below the budget so we can approve what we've just said?
Yeah.
and they can do the maths after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. And then we need to approve the payments of the grant awards made tonight formally.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put that to a vote. All happy? And to note, these are all, I think, pretty much everything's to note now. So we're noting the next round of applications will be in 23. Which I didn't understand on the minutes. It said the original grant application will be reviewed on the 18th of February. I'm assuming that was the time.
That's probably just a typo.
Or check, maybe because we've
I
changed
think the
it.
service provision meeting
The
is
service
the
provision,
27th
yeah.
as well, isn't it?
Maybe because you shuffled the dates about and didn't know, that just won't be corrected for the record. Accounts for payment, so the chairman spent £35 on going to a ball in Saddleworth. No additional payments, so we're happy to note the attendance of the board.
Yeah.
Financial statements, again to note, but Rich, do you want to explain briefly what the problem with the bank is?
It's sorted now, but they blocked the 2 payments to Humley Library because 2 payments for £25,000 who we never paid before, it obviously triggered lots of. So when me and Councillor Bellamy ended up down in HSBC talking to somebody in the Philippines about trying to explain to them why we paid 2 payments rather than 1 payment of £25,000. It was very frustrating. But, so I hope that I haven't checked, but I tried to pay them again on Friday. I'm assuming that's gone through, but that's the intention, is to pay the other one tomorrow.
Okay, thanks for that. Tenancies, outside's on a good footing now, money's coming in regularly, just noting these things. And we've got the first invoice for electricity usage, that's been sent on.
Yeah, well, they
So
paid,
who's in the outside building now? What do they do?
Unfair Vintage. They're using it for their online business and storage.
Right, so that's why it looks closed.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's not,
it's not a shop really anymore.
So it's quite it's a lock-up literally over the road from their public shop.
Oh, right, the next to the charity shop, yeah.
So it's quite a good solution, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see them being a long-term
Yeah.
tenant as long as the business is successful.
I've never seen anybody buy anything there. And they've got loads of stock.
And then we're noting that Rich is going to draw up new contracts and invoices for all the tenants. Happy to note these things. Internal control checks, I came in the other day and did 3 months worth of Rich, and that was all fine, didn't find any errors whatsoever.
Well done.
Well done to Rich, yeah.
And the bank is just colour blocked all of it.
Yeah, okay.
Financial record to note.
Yeah, I'll try and do that tomorrow. The records for February now, I've got access to the bank account.
Rich, to report on the grants training.
Yeah, so I went to the grants training, I was sat in my house, but there you go. I went with some of the questions that came up from the working group and from things that me and Jen have discussed as well. So it was some quite useful stuff came up in terms of what we're trying to do about rolling grants. And what they basically said was, it's good practice to have rolling grants that you might pay over X amount of years. What they suggested we should be doing is basically somebody puts in a grant application that would basically that you would have approved over say a 4-year cycle, and then they suggested that good practice would be to write the information regarding the reserves that you're committing into your financial regulations and all your I think we've got a reserves policy as well, so we just write it into those policies and that kind of guarantees it for the term of the council. I think that makes things quite easy in terms of, because we were kind of wondering about contracts and so on and so forth, which I don't think is necessary for these smaller grants, only for the very large ones, like to John Ford. The only other thing I'd say is we still don't have a mechanism really to cut these down before it gets to this stage. We've got 27 grants. We might have a process that cuts them down. Now, what other councils would do, and they were talking about, was a small working group I know, but where you mean by Zoom, maybe it's the vice chair, the chair, and the officer, and work through that together. Just the three of you, and you sieve out stuff based around problem, you know, the kind of
Are the powers or not?
the exclusions, the exclusions and the powers, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's something to think about. But in terms of the rolling grants, I think we can set that in when the new council kicks in.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's good.
Would the exclusions not, once the new process is adopted at the beginning of next year, could the exclusions not automatically be rejected before they even get to need to be seen by the chair or vice chair?
I mean, so many of them are iffy, unfortunately. It's like with the schools ones.
Yeah, the allotment, yeah. That planting projects, you could argue, I think it's a bit unfair to put it on the staff to refuse that.
Yeah.
And then, because if they appealed and came to us and we said, well, that we didn't even know it was, I think if it's gone through a council process, at least you can say the council's decided.
And I think James' point was that it doesn't need to be a meeting particularly, we'll just email the documents, look them over, kick them to the curb then.
But would, I suppose, just, I was just thinking in terms of kind of the process, it'd be whether they are advised in advance of the decision-making committee meeting that they haven't met the criteria and therefore aren't counted, or whether actually there's an approval through that committee meeting makes decisions that says actually these were the long listed ones which were formally rejected.
Yeah, well I suppose that the trouble with going on training like this is all you do is have to review the report that you've just written as a working group, isn't it? So yeah, we'll have to keep, obviously we just have to keep tweaking stuff as we're going.
I was just thinking, because actually what's interesting as well from the council's point of view is to see the groups and organisations that are applying, even if some of them aren't successful, because it's useful information.
Well, maybe we don't need to go down that route. It just seems like with 27 applications, there was an awful lot.
You do a SIF before you need to request all these documents.
There's the other issue. So some of them is whether or not the actual requested item meets the criteria, but the other one is about the organisational bits. So clearly there's that gap process, the grant access, So you've got to do that up front before you can get through. So the one that would definitely have failed that was the summer wine one. Because there is no organisation, so that would have been at a very early stage. That would be, you need to wrap this round you need a formal established organisation to adopt this, and then you've got something. But yeah, whichever way it works, you're going to get anything between, well, nearly everything's going to come in probably not spot on, is it? So you're always going to be feeding back to them that we need this, we need that, can you clarify this, can you do that? But I think hopefully the new grants criteria might act as a solid filter. I hope so.
I think without dragging on, I think the last Summer Wine is a good example of what's a nice idea by some local businesses, and hopefully we've creatively found a way to deliver that instead of a bureaucratic no, the computer says no. They've still got a lifeline, haven't they, if they can make it work, and I hope they do, because I think it's nice to be able to support those centres, but equally we've got to have due diligence our side, that we're not just handing the money out to individuals.
Yeah. On that application, I was quite taken with the idea of the summer wine trail meets walk as a welcome. And I wondered whether or not we get some big banners up around home first saying winos are welcome.
Last item, publicising the work. Well, I guess obviously there's a big news story about how much money we've given away and we've supported. Is there any further items other than that one? Thanks
Well,
for
other than maybe flagging up the fact that there'll be a new grants criteria. Probably worth signposting that even if it's not.
Yeah, indeed.
probably worth putting that on all the replies to all the grants as well.
Right, and say we,
It's also
we're
worth-
bound by the quantity of organisations contacting us, and we've reviewed our criteria.
And I don't think if you wanted to put a nudge about the importance of deadlines and complete applications and also beneficiaries, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, you can pursue it as a general thing, and some people obviously answer that really well, but you know, some of the applications really struggles, I think, on demonstrating the benefit or difference it makes.
Yeah. Perhaps I'll tweak the application form again.
Thanks for your time, everybody.
Yeah, the one thing I noticed, hardly anybody addresses the sustainability criteria, so we need to,
Fair point.
we
Yeah.
need to emphasise.
Quickly, but
Well done, Chair.
Holly,